Her hands ran lower than they should have during that search, and when I turned to question her, she just stared and didn't stop. That was the moment I knew she'd already crossed the line. It all started that night. I didn't have a real reason to be out driving that night, at least not one I could have explained if anyone had asked. The truth was, my apartment had started feeling too small. The silence inside had grown loud enough to rattle my nerves, so I left, grabbed my keys, my hoodie, and told myself I'd just take a short drive. No destination, no plan, just movement. The city after midnight always felt like another version of itself. Gritty and glowing, soft edges hidden beneath flickering lights and empty sidewalks. I rolled down the windows and let the air rush in, sharp and cool against my skin. It didn't exactly clear my head, but it numbed it. That was enough. Work had been hell. My manager dropped 3 deadlines on me right before the weekend and made a passive-aggressive remark about falling behind. I hadn't even eaten properly all day. I was too drained to sleep, too restless to lie still. The night became my only escape. I drove aimlessly, letting the quiet hum of tires on asphalt and the low volume of a lo-fi playlist keep me from thinking too hard. But my peace didn't last long. It happened when I turned onto a back road near the outskirts of the neighborhood. A place I knew well, barely lit, tree-lined, isolated. A perfect stretch of nothing for someone trying to be alone with their thoughts. Except that night, I wasn't alone. The flash of red and blue lights in my rearview mirror snapped me back into my body like a slap. My hands tightened on the wheel, my chest seized. I wasn't speeding. I hadn't missed any signs. My car was registered, inspected, insured. Still, I felt that familiar wave of anxiety crash over me, the universal dread of being pulled over. I eased to the side of the road, parking under a dull street lamp that buzzed like a tired wasp. The patrol car rolled up behind me, headlights still glowing, making the inside of my car feel like a stage. My heart thundered in my chest as the door opened behind me and someone stepped out. Boots, long strides. A shadow growing larger in the driver's side mirror. I rolled down the window. And then I saw her. The officer was a woman, early 30s maybe, tall and sharply built with the kind of posture that warned you not to mess around. Her uniform was crisp, fitted in all the right places, her badge catching the light like a threat. But what caught me most were her eyes. Dark, focused, unreadable. Eyes that seemed to see more than I'd ever spoken aloud. "License and registration," she said, her voice low and even. No trace of warmth, no attempt at friendliness, just authority, cut clean and cold. I handed them over without a word. My hands were shaking slightly. She noticed. I saw the way her eyes flicked down to my fingers, then back up. Her jaw tensed. She read my ID, glanced at the registration, then handed them back. I thought that would be it. Step out of the vehicle. I blinked. "Is there a problem, officer?" "Step out of the car," she repeated, firmer this time. The weight of her tone left no room for argument. My pulse kicked harder as I obeyed, pushing open the door and stepping onto the cool pavement. The air wrapped around me like a warning. She motioned me toward the side of the car. "Turn around, hands on the hood." I hesitated, just for a second. But it was enough. Her eyes narrowed slightly. I did as she said, placing my palms flat against the metal. It was still warm from the drive. "This is a routine search," she said, voice quieter now, but something in her tone didn't feel routine. I bit my lip and said nothing. Her hands touched my shoulders, firm, controlled, moving slowly down the length of my arms. My skin prickled. I stared straight ahead, trying not to react, but I couldn't help it. Every place she touched, every shift of her fingers, lit something in me I hadn't expected. She moved lower, across my back, my ribs, my waist. Her touch stayed professional, until it wasn't. When she reached my hips, her fingers paused, just a second too long, not enough to accuse her of anything, but too much to ignore. My breath caught, my jaw tightened, and then her hand slid just a little further, down my thigh, a press, a trail, and then she brushed somewhere no officer had ever brushed, somewhere deliberate, somewhere forbidden. I gasped, a sound I couldn't hold back. Her hand froze. For a moment, neither of us moved. The air between us thickened, pressed in tighter, filled with something hot and dangerous and completely unspoken. She stood behind me, so close I could feel the heat from her body, the slight hitch in her breath. And still, she didn't pull away. When she finally did, it was with a sharp step backward. "You're clear," she said, but her voice had changed. It was lower, rougher. I turned slowly, my eyes meeting hers. The moment stretched between us like elastic, tense, trembling, and too close to snapping. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, maybe apologize, maybe explain, but she didn't. She stepped back again. "You can go." That was it. No ticket, no warning, just go. I slid back into my seat, my hands shaking as I grabbed the wheel. I started the car but didn't move, not yet. I watched her in the mirror as she walked away. Her shoulders were too rigid, her jaw too tight. She climbed back into the patrol car, but she didn't drive off. She just sat there, staring straight ahead. I pulled onto the road with my heart in my throat. The air in my car felt heavier now. My body was humming in all the places she'd touched. My mind refused to settle. That hadn't been a routine search. That hadn't been professional. But the strangest part? I didn't want her to stop. Somehow I knew there was much yet to come. I didn't sleep that night. Even after I made it home, locked the door behind me, and curled up on the couch in the dark, my mind wouldn't slow down. I replayed the moment over and over. The way her hands had moved, the way her breath had hitched behind me. The exact second she crossed a line and didn't step back. I could still feel it. The heat of her palm against my hip, the press of her fingers where they didn't belong, not rough, not threatening, just deliberate and devastating. I kept trying to convince myself it had all been in my head, that maybe I was reading into it, letting the isolation of the night distort everything, but then I'd remember how long her hand had hovered, how her voice had dropped afterward, how she hadn't even pretended to give me a reason, no citation, no warning, just, "You're clear." As if I was the one who'd done something wrong, and the worst part, I didn't hate it. I should have. God, I knew I should have, but I didn't. Instead, something inside me sparked, an itch that hadn't stopped since I drove away, a question I couldn't silence. Who was she when she wasn't wearing the badge? And why the hell did that moment feel like more than just a slip? By morning, I gave up on pretending it didn't matter. I found myself pulling out my laptop still in yesterday's hoodie, searching the department's website. I didn't even know her name, just a face and the storm she left inside me, but it didn't take long to find her. Officer J. Carter. Jace. Of course that was her name. It suited her, clean cut, clipped, hard around the edges. The profile photo didn't do her justice. Her features were sharp, chin high, uniform perfect, no smile, not even a hint of softness. Still, the moment I saw her face again, that same flicker of heat rushed up my spine. I found one public-facing social media account too. Official, mostly photos from community events, parades, the occasional training session. Nothing personal, nothing to show who she really was. But I didn't need to scroll far to know I wasn't going to find answers there. Because the woman who pinned me to the hood of my own car wasn't looking for attention. She was hiding. Days passed. I didn't expect to see her again. I told myself it was a one-time thing, an incident that didn't deserve more oxygen than it already had. I even managed to convince myself that what I'd felt was just leftover adrenaline and confusion, a fluke, a fantasy, until I saw her again. It was a Friday night. I'd gone out with a few friends to a bar tucked behind a strip mall. Not our usual place, but it had decent music and fewer college kids. I wasn't even drinking. I just needed noise, laughter, people who didn't ask questions. I was still pretending I was fine. Somewhere between pretending to care about a conversation and half watching the bartender pour drinks, I excused myself for air. I stepped out into the parking lot, phone in hand, the cold night air slapping against my cheeks, and there she was, leaning against her patrol car under the faint orange wash of a flickering street lamp. Alone, still, watching me. Our eyes met before I had the chance to turn away. My chest tightened instantly. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't a random patrol. I walked toward her slowly, cautiously, the hum of music from inside the bar fading behind me. "You following me now?" I asked, voice low, only half joking. Jace's expression didn't change. "You shouldn't be out here alone this late." I let out a sharp, breathless laugh. "That's the second time you've said that." Her jaw tensed. "It's still true." There was a pause, one that stretched too long, too loaded, the kind that says everything neither of us was brave enough to name. The parking lot was nearly empty, the night air thick between us. I could see the shine of sweat along her collarbone, the way her fingers flexed near her belt. "You never answered my question," I said. "What question?" I stepped closer. "Why did you stop me that night?" Jace looked away, just briefly, but it was enough. A break in the armor, a crack. "I don't know," she admitted, and the honesty in her voice nearly floored me. "It just felt like I had to." I searched her face. Her eyes flickered. Guilt, hesitation, want. I couldn't be sure. She seemed like someone who'd been fighting herself for a long time. Someone who didn't have the luxury of giving in to what she wanted, but I wasn't interested in being another thing she buried. I took a final step forward, closing the space between us. "It didn't feel like just a search," I whispered. She didn't answer. Instead, her eyes dropped to my lips. A second passed, then another. Her breath caught, and for one terrifying, thrilling second, I thought she'd kiss me right there, under that half-dead streetlight with the rest of the world just a blur behind us. But she didn't. She tore her eyes away, jaw tightening. "You should go back inside." The words hit me like cold water. I stared at her, breath unsteady, heart thudding in my ears. "You can't keep pretending that night didn't mean something." She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Just a sigh. Just regret. Then she pushed off the car, walking away from me again, her footsteps stiff, too fast, like she couldn't trust herself to stay. And this time I didn't follow, but I didn't go back inside either, because now I knew I wasn't imagining it. And neither was she. And then I knew this was just the beginning. I didn't expect to see her again. After the parking lot, after the second time she walked away without saying what we both knew, some small part of me believed that would be the end, that she'd tuck it all back behind her badge and her uniform, and file me away like a mistake she couldn't afford to make again. But I wasn't filed away. I wasn't forgotten. It happened 4 nights later. I'd taken a detour after work, too restless to go home, too wired to pretend everything was fine. I stopped at a gas station just outside the city limits, the kind with a dim flickering sign and a dusty parking lot full of beat-up sedans and delivery vans. I went in, grabbed a cold bottle of water I didn't need, and stood in the empty aisle far too long, staring at the freezer door without seeing anything. And when I came back out, there she was, parked diagonally at the far end of the lot. Engine running. Window rolled down. Officer Jace Carter resting one arm on the open frame, sunglasses hiding her eyes even though the sun had long since dipped beneath the skyline. My feet moved before I gave them permission. I walked straight to her door, heart drumming loud in my ears. "You've got to stop doing this," I said, folding my arms to keep them from trembling. She didn't flinch. Doing what? Finding me. A long pause. The low rumble of her engine filled the space between us. "I didn't follow you," she said evenly. "No?" I tilted my head. "So this is just another coincidence, right?" She exhaled, slow and deliberate. "You shouldn't push this." "Why?" I challenged myself. "Because you might finally have to admit you felt something that night." Silence. Then, before I could say anything else, she shoved the door open and stepped out. I stumbled back instinctively, but she wasn't angry, not in the way people usually are when they're caught. Her expression was unreadable, but her movements weren't. They were too quick, too fluid, too rehearsed to be anything but deliberate. She closed the space between us in 2 strides, and then she grabbed me. Her hand slid around my neck, thumb resting gently under my jaw, the way you hold someone when you're not sure whether you're about to kiss them or tell them to run. Her other hand gripped my waist, fingers pressing into my shirt like she was anchoring herself. And her mouth. God, her mouth hovered just inches from mine. "You don't get it," she murmured, her voice tight and low. Us, it's not supposed to happen." I didn't move, didn't breathe. "But it is happening," I whispered, and then she kissed me. There was no hesitation, no awkward first contact stutter. It was immediate, full-bodied and hungry, like she'd been starving since the night she touched me on the side of the road and had finally given herself permission to feel it. Her lips were firm, demanding, pulling a sound from my throat I hadn't meant to let out. I clutched her shirt, dragging her closer as the kiss deepened. It was methy, her hips pressed into mine, pinning me against the hood of her patrol car. My hands slid up her chest under the fabric of her uniform. She groaned into my mouth when my fingers grazed bare skin. The whole world narrowed to her scent, something clean, sharp, and warm, like cedar and something dangerously feminine beneath the law and steel. She gripped the back of my neck with one hand, the other trailing down to cup the curve of my hip, pulling me closer, tighter, until every part of her was flush against every part of me. I lost time, I lost my thought. I didn't care that we were standing in a dim gas station parking lot. I didn't care that she still had her badge, her gun, her damn duty, but then a sharp voice sliced through the haze. "Carter!" We both froze. She pulled back, breath ragged, eyes wide. Her hand fell away from me, her mouth parted like she was about to say something, anything, but no words came. Behind us, another officer was crossing the lot. He didn't look suspicious, not yet, but Jace straightened like she'd been slapped. The mask dropped over her face again, fast, flawless. "Ma'am," she said flatly, nodding at me like I was a stranger. "You're free to go." I blinked. "Excuse me?" "You can go now." My stomach dropped. "Are you serious right now?" Her eyes didn't meet mine. "I have another matter to handle. Drive safe." The second officer reached us, nodded at me, then turned to Jace. "You good?" She nodded once. "Yeah, all good." I stood there for a second longer, stunned and burning. I watched her take 2 steps back, then 3, her posture like stone, every trace of softness gone. She didn't look at me again, and I hated her for it. But even more, I hated how much I wanted her to turn around and not walk away this time. I got in my car, slammed the door, and sat there, my fingers trembling on the wheel. My lips were swollen, my chest was still heaving. And even through the fury, even through the humiliation, my body ached for her. I felt it in her kiss. She wasn't confused, she wasn't experimenting. She wanted me, but she wanted her control more. But still, there was so much to come. I didn't see her for 2 days. Not on the roads, not in passing. Not even a faint glimpse of her patrol car turning a distant corner or idling at a red light. Nothing. Like she'd vanished. And still, her kiss was all over me. I could feel it every time I touched my lips, every time I passed the mirror and saw the mark she'd left in the quiet way my expression had changed, my mouth a little more knowing, my eyes a little less guarded. That kiss had taken something from me, sure, but it had also given me something I didn't realize I was starving for. Confirmation that I hadn't been imagining it, that she'd felt it too, and it terrified her. I spent the next 48 hours half hoping and half dreading she would show up. I kept checking my phone even though I didn't have her number. I found myself walking to the window whenever I heard a car outside. I cursed myself for needing something I couldn't name and wouldn't admit. She'd kissed me, then erased it in front of a colleague, then it disappeared, and the worst part, I still wanted her to come back. It was almost midnight when the knock came. At first I thought I imagined it. I was curled up on the couch in nothing but an oversized tee and underwear, scrolling aimlessly through shows I wouldn't watch. The knock was sharp. 1, then 2. I froze. Then it came again. I moved slowly, barefoot, against hardwood, my pulse rising with every step. I didn't even look through the peephole. Something in my chest already knew. I opened the door. She was standing there. No uniform this time. Just a dark gray hoodie pulled over a fitted black tank top and jeans that hugged her hips like a second skin. Her hair was slightly messy, and her eyes looked darker than I remembered, as if the weight of not seeing me had been just as unbearable. She didn't say a word, and neither did I. I stepped aside. She walked in. The air between us wasn't just heavy, it was electric. Every footstep she took echoed across the floor like thunder. She didn't ask to sit. She didn't explain. She didn't offer anything resembling an apology. And I didn't ask for one, because when she turned around and finally looked at me, I saw everything in her eyes. The tension, the hunger, the restraint that had nearly torn her apart. I didn't speak as I closed the door. I didn't speak when she crossed the room and reached for my waist with both hands, pulling me into her so fast it knocked the breath out of me. And I definitely didn't speak when her lips crashed into mine for the second time. But this time, it wasn't rushed. It wasn't behind a building or in the middle of a job. This time, it was raw, desperate, personal. There was nothing separating us. No badge, no duty, no public eye. Just her. Just me. And the space we filled with everything we'd been holding back. She pressed me up against the wall, her hands sliding beneath my shirt, fingertips tracing the curve of my spine as I arched into her. Our kiss deepened, breaths catching, mouths opening wider with each pass. I tugged at her hoodie until she yanked it off, revealing arms that trembled slightly, not with hesitation, but with something closer to relief. Like she'd finally let herself cross the line she'd been dancing around for far too long. She lifted me with ease, carrying me toward the couch without breaking the kiss, her lips dragging down my neck, her teeth grazing just enough to make me whimper. I wrapped my legs around her waist, her hands firm beneath my thighs as she lowered me onto the cushions, hovering over me with a look that would have burned the house down. When she spoke, her voice was hoarse, cracked at the edges. "If you don't want this, if you want me to stop, say it now." I didn't say a word. Instead, I reached for her again. What followed wasn't soft. It wasn't delicate or practiced or careful. It was urgent, carnal, built from every second we'd spent pretending we didn't want each other. Her fingers slid beneath my shirt, up my ribs, under my bra. I gasped into her mouth as she pressed her body into mine, hips grinding down with a rhythm that made my head spin. We were in heat and sweat and skin. She unzipped my shorts with shaking hands, dragging them down along with my underwear in one motion, her mouth following in a trail of wet kisses and bruising bites. My body arched, my thighs trembled. She didn't stop. Not when I gasped, not when I whispered her name for the first time. Jace. It came out like a prayer I didn't know I'd been holding. She moved with intention, with knowledge. Like this wasn't new for her, but it meant something it never had before. Her lips worshipped, her hands commanded, and when I finally came undone beneath her touch, I wasn't quiet about it. I gripped her shoulders like I was afraid she'd vanish again, and when she slid back up and kissed me, I tasted the truth on her tongue. She hadn't just come for sex. She came because she couldn't stay away. Afterward, we lay tangled together on the couch, her head resting on my chest, my fingers stroking absent patterns along her arm. Her uniform had always made her seem larger than life, unreachable. But here, like this, she felt so human, so breakable, and yet I didn't dare ask what this meant. I didn't want to chase the moment away, because for the first time in days, the storm inside me had gone still. She was here, and for now, that was enough. But for the future, I don't know. The sun was just beginning to rise when I stirred. Light spilled through the blinds in thin streaks, casting golden lines across her bare shoulder where the sheet had slipped. Jace was still asleep, her arm heavy around my waist, her face buried in the crook of my neck like she was hiding from the world, and maybe from herself too. She looked different like this, not softer exactly, but freer, as if for a few stolen hours she'd stepped out of the cage she lived in, the badge, the duty, the silence, all of it set down like armor too heavy to carry into the night. I didn't move. I didn't want to risk breaking the fragile peace we'd built between our skin, but I also knew it wouldn't last. And sure enough, about 20 minutes later, I felt the shift. Her breath changed first, slightly more shallow. Her grip around me loosened. Then she blinked, sat up slowly, and let the air between us cool by a few unspoken degrees. She didn't look at me when she swung her legs over the edge of the couch and began pulling her clothes back on. "I have to go," she muttered. I sat up, watching her slip her shirt back over the curve of her back, hiding the bruises and kisses I'd left there just hours ago. You don't have to sneak out." She paused. "I'm not sneaking," she said, but the lie sat there heavy and sour. I rose to my feet, arms crossed over my chest. "Then why won't you look at me?" She finally turned, and her expression punched the breath out of my lungs. She looked torn, fractured, like a soldier waking up after a moment of weakness and remembering the war they were still in. "I shouldn't have come," she said quietly. I swallowed hard. "But you did. That was a mistake." It stung. God, it stung more than it should have. I laughed, bitter and sharp. "You kissed me like you meant it. You touched me like you needed it. But sure, let's call it a mistake." "Don't do that," she snapped, suddenly loud, stepping closer. "Don't make this harder." "Harder for who?" I shot back. "You? The woman who gets to walk away and pretend nothing happened? Because I can't do that, Jace. I felt everything. I still do." Her eyes welled, and for a terrifying second I thought she'd turn and bolt. But she didn't. Instead, she stepped forward again, slow this time, until we were toe to toe. "I can't be what you want," she whispered, voice shaking. "I don't know how. I don't want you to be anything but honest," I said, softer now. She looked at me like I'd peeled her open. "It's not just about me. If word got out, if anyone knew, I could lose everything." I nodded. "I know. I've worked too hard to get where I am." "I know that too." She closed her eyes. "So what do we do?" And that's when I realized she wasn't walking away because she didn't feel what I felt. She was walking away because she did, and it terrified her. So I stepped forward and wrapped my arms around her waist. "We don't do anything right now," I whispered. "We breathe. We figure it out. One moment at a time." She rested her forehead against mine, and for the first time since that night on the roadside, I felt her exhale without flinching. "I don't want to let go," she said. "Then don't." Silence. She kissed me once more, softer this time, lingering, not rushed, not panicking, just a present. Then she stepped back. "I have to go, for now." I nodded, eyes wet but unashamed. "Okay." She opened the door, then looked over her shoulder one last time. "This isn't over." And with that, she was gone. I stood in the doorway for a long time after, the scent of her still clinging to the air, the taste of her words lingering like a secret I wouldn't let die. It wasn't over. Whatever this was, we weren't done, and maybe we never would be. She walked out like she had no choice, but her hands, her lips, her silence, they all told a different story. So tell me, if something forbidden feels this real, does that make it wrong? Or does it just make it undeniable? Let me know in the comments because I'm still trying to make sense of what she left behind.